I went from 0 to my first client, which was $150 a week client, to $10,000 a month in under 3 months.
Today, we are interviewing Aidan, who is the host of the Synthesizer Community with 17,000 members and like one of the top communities, like 0.1%. The Synthesizer is the community that I believe you should start with because it just helps you to get paid in order to change the world. I want to dive a little bit deeper with Aidan today, see what kind of story he has, how he started with Synthesizer, and generally see what the community is about. But we're going to start with the most important question there is. Why do all synthesizers love dragon fruits?
You're surprising me with this one. Maybe it has something to do with how they give you mystical powers. It was a meme on how Andrew was always eating yellow dragon fruit. And we thought, for context, Andrew is the founder of Synthesizer, who I'm working with. And maybe we all thought it would make us be like him.
You're talking about some mystic powers. If you could choose a superpower that a synthesizer would get if they eat the yellow dragon fruit, what kind of power would that be?
You know, synthesizer fashion, maybe the ability to solve any problem in the world. Normally, I would say something like flying or something like that, super speed, but solving problems, the ultimate superpower.
I really like that. How it was in the beginning when you joined and you had your first community.
That's a great question. And context, Synthesizer was the first free community ever on school, many years before the school games was ever started. My story in community building and this kind of world, it actually started with a Telegram group chat back in the day. And it was a group of me and my friends, some guys I knew from kind of around the world who I'd networked with, met on Twitter and other social apps, and a bunch of guys who were trying to start online businesses. And I made that group chat. We called it the Round Table. And it was just a bunch of guys who are trying to start businesses, supporting each other, liking each other's stuff, commenting, giving each other testimonials. That led into my first school community, which was called X Order. And it was all about growing on the platform of X, or Twitter, as it was called. And X Order was my first community, which actually started with two guys from the original group chat that I was in, that I made. And from there, it was the only community on how to kind of grow an audience and write content on Twitter. And I was also
Good
running a little
niche.
bit of a ghostwriting agency and doing some appointment setting and all these other things. So I was running another business alongside it, which was kind of funneling it as I was solving problems, helping my clients grow, and then kind of sharing the solutions with my community. And funny enough, Andrew, at one point in time, he was like looking through school, I guess, and he joined the community.
You didn't even reach out to them. Like he just joined.
It was a work in progress. I always like to say you want to broaden your surface area of luck, right? I've talked about this a few times. I think even with you, Lucas. And I broadened my surface area of luck by doing other things. Like I DM'd Andrew on school a couple times and I like sent him my community link. One time he made a post talking about school. He's like, "What communities do you think are going to be great?" And I like shouted myself out and I got people in my community to shout us out to him, like, "Go comment on it, go post here." People are saying, "Oh, it's the best community." So it was in his peripheral vision, I believe, right? Where it wasn't, say, the first contact he might have come into it. But when I asked him about it, he didn't even remember it. But he noticed the community. It was a low ticket community at the time. I think it was $55 a month. And he joined, and I got a little notification, the little ching notification. Oh, Andrew Kirby joined your school community. I thought, oh man, this is a huge opportunity. I need to do something about this. So I dropped what I was doing. I was working on a few different things, and I just sent him a DM, started connecting with him, started helping him. And eventually I just started helping him with more and more projects, anything I could basically get my hands with. And I called it Project Indispensable, where I wanted to become indispensable to him. And over time, it manifested into that. And he asked me if I wanted to help him with Synthesizer. And then he asked me if I wanted to host the community. And I said yes.
I love that story, and also that he kind of like just joined the community and you were like giving value over and over to the point where it became undeniable. That was the first high ticket client, or did you have like other high ticket clients before that?
No, I did have quite a few high ticket clients before that in my agency side of the business, but those were more clients where I tried to turn Andrew into more of a partnership, which essentially for me, I just define it as becoming more indispensable to their business. So when you have a high ticket client, you're fulfilling, say, the obligations of your contract of whatever you promised to deliver for them. And if you're good, you obviously want to over deliver and give them more than you promised, more than they're paying for. So they have a great experience and they keep paying you and keep working with you. And then the
Gotcha.
one little differentiator that I personally think about it as is then someone who's a partner, you go above and beyond. You do everything. You try and become indispensable to their business and their life, if you will, where they can't kind of operate without you. If you left, it would cause a lot of pain and it would suck. And basically, since I really loved the synthesizer mission and vision and values, and I saw how school was developing and I wanted to align myself with that because I saw it as being a significant player in the online game in the future. I thought, I want to tie myself into this. This is what I love doing. So I might as well do everything I can to become part of this by being as valuable as I can.
I love that. So it kind of like the original vision and the values are the thing that got you over the point and do so much work that it just becomes unreasonable that this isn't working. And how did you do the research on finding that mission? Were you always interested in the education system and the concept of helping people or specifically educators get paid? Or was there something else that resonated with you?
Yeah, well, I always kind of like a lot of people in Synthesizer, a lot of people brought together. I felt that whisper of my soul, something calling me to maybe do something bigger than just make money or just work a 9 to 5 or whatever it may be. I think all of us here have a bit of that whisper of our soul calling us to do something. And it just spoke to me as this was a good vessel, a good boat to row in. I remember a Warren Buffett quote where it's not about how hard you row, it's about what boat you're rowing in. And I just saw this vehicle, this boat, as something that could further that impact, income and fun. If we think about three pillars that we kind of are wanting to optimize for as educational creators, impact, income, and fun, I saw this boat as having the highest long-term leverage towards that. And the most obvious way of looking at it, in my sense, the worst case scenario was I provide a lot of value to someone, I get better at what I'm doing, and now they like me and nothing happens. And I just keep doing my other business. Or best case scenario, who knows? Couldn't even conceptualize where it would lead today. So it's kind of having faith in the process and faith in the path and knowing that if you actually give, you will receive eventually. And I
Hmm.
think that is what happened.
I think that mentality is such a crucial aspect to learn because when I got started and I was kind of like going after high ticket clients, there was this sense of desperation in there. And I think people notice that. It's the same with relationship, right? Like if you're really like trying too hard to date someone and same thing in business, when you try too hard and it's like, hey, like this needs to work, then you tend to kind of like scare them off. And I think one of the reasons why this worked out so well with Kirby was because it wasn't something that needed to happen. It's like, hey, like I'm holding my hand out there, and if something happens, that's amazing. But it's not like something that I need to hold on to. Before we go a little bit deeper into the synthesizer, because I do want to hear more about like how you created the roadmap. I still think it's one of the best courses that I've like ever taken, and I've taken a lot of them. But before we do that, like we both wearing school shirts. What was it that got you to school?
Multiple reasons. One was, of course, synthesizer using school as just a group user. The second would be probably Sam Ovens, his influence. I see his influence really, really dug deep into the roots of the online space, where a lot of what is taught and done is just remnants of Sam's kind of soul and consulting.com being brought back up. So I can kind of consider him as the OG who started the industry, if you will, almost. So I have a lot of faith in him and a lot of trust that he knows what he's doing. And if he's doing something, it's probably going to be really good. And then the third kind of nail in the coffin was just Hormozy talking about it. And simply the use case of School, it being so simple to use, it giving you exactly what you need without making anything too complex. It just makes it such a simple joy to use to deliver for clients, to build community, and to do all these things. So it kind of just felt like the perfect, again, vessel vehicle to put myself in.
So you found the best boat within the boat.
Yeah,
I like that.
exactly.
Hormozy is also the thing that eventually got me over it. So him connecting himself to School is like a massive proof that apparently got both of us in the end to go all in on this. But let's focus a little bit more on the synthesizer. So when you join the synthesizer community, one of the first aspects that people tend to talk about, or the things to start, is the roadmap. So maybe give us some ideas on like what the roadmap is, why you created that, and like what it helps people.
Yeah, the beauty of the roadmap is that it documents the path to get started and turn, say, being an educational creator into a career and going full time. That is the objective of it. And I say it's beautiful because it literally documents my journey. It documents Kirby's journey. It documents other creators, other synthesizers' journeys who went from, okay, I have an idea. I want to start a business. I feel this kind of calling to do more than just work a 9 to 5. I feel like I have some sort of hidden potential. I watch other videos of people starting these businesses, traveling the world, living their life, and I think I can do that too. And it's taking people who have that kind of desire and then they're showing them a path to actually turn it into something. Because there's so many distractions along the way. There's so many ladies in red dresses running around that it's really hard to get started. It's really hard to figure out what to do and start with directional accuracy. So the roadmap basically is giving people a path to follow, a proven path to follow where they can stop second guessing and just follow the steps that are documented in order to get a desired outcome. The whole point of the roadmap is to follow the proven path and then innovate on your product, right? So the path to starting the business is the same for everybody, but what you do is different for each person. Where the problems I solved in my life led me down a different path than the problems you might solve in your life. And it follows a few distinct phases where it starts with, like I mentioned, directional accuracy, trying to start in the right direction, where instead of trying to be very specific in the fact that I'm going to start this and do this, and then completely missing the mark, which you do as a beginner because your ideas tend to not be very good, we start with problems.
Yes.
Did that spark a thought there?
A little bit. It really is. Like when I went through it, it was almost creepy on how accurately you were. Like it's like you probably did this, and then this happened, and then like, and as you were kind of like talking, I was like, oh yeah, like I remember it was almost like th- someone filmed my whole life, and it's like, okay, these are the steps, and then I was like, oh shit, like I'm currently stuck here, and then like it really did help me overcome this step. We can cover the thing that I was stuck and what the roadmap helped me in just a second. But I want you to finish and kind of like go deeper into the creation process of.
Yeah, well, the creation process took a while. I think Andrew and I just talked about it the other day, and I think it took us over 3 months from idea, conceptualizing it, working on it, fleshing it out, building it, and then fine tuning it and creating it into something beautiful that people enjoy going through. And it took many months, and the main time was spent around exactly what you said. What is the path? Like, where are people struggling? Where do people run into walls? What makes people quit? Why do people start and then fail? Why does someone spend a year trying to do something and then burn out and fail and go back to their job? What are all these problems people are facing? Then how can we help them solve it in the simplest path possible, where we remove all the complexity and remove all the painful parts so that it's as simple as possible to follow? And most of the time was spent there. I actually flew out to London and then took a train into Bath where Kirby was staying. Context, I'm from Vancouver. And just to work on it. So I flew out and I stayed in Bath for a month just to work on this project.
Fun project though, like
Yeah.
just kind of like working on it, synthesizing things. Like I really like this ideation creation process when it's there's so much potential because you can like really mold it in almost anything. and like mad respect for also finishing it, because I think this is where a lot of creators get stuck. They just create something that either doesn't get watched or that no one really wanted in the first place. So how did you know that this was actually the thing that people wanted?
There's many things I could dial into here. The first is we start with the idea, the directional accuracy, which is the problems in our own life. As a synthesizer, it tends to be. So I faced these problems. I went 6 grand in debt trying to start a business. I burned through all my savings, made no money, and just sucked. So I ran into the problems myself. Kirby ran into the problems himself. That was our start. But generally, that's not enough. It's not proof of concept. You don't have enough data to back it up. You can't tell if everybody's running into the same problems as you. So the second thing we did was kind of going to the market and doing the research. So one literal actionable tip is we created something called the Synthesizer Leaders, right? Where we pulled out some of the most active, valuable people in Synthesizer at the time of building, and we pulled them into a little private weekly group call. And that gave me the data of speaking to the people we were trying to serve and seeing what problems they were facing, seeing what they were trying, interviewing the ones who were making it work. What were they doing to make it work? What were the ones who weren't failing at? What did they need? And then we took all that and then we just began to craft it. And it started again with the principle of starting then learning. So instead of building out the whole program and just dropping it and seeing what happened, we started by just creating the outline, just the roadmap of what we thought people should do, made it into a Canva image, posted that, saw how it resonated, collected the information. Oh, people loved it. Okay, let's build the first video, right? We just built the first video, then we dropped that. Then we made the second video, then the third, then the fourth, and the fifth. And we built it and we released it over a couple of months as we went, which allowed us to collect information straight from the market on what they liked, what they didn't like, what was working, what wasn't working, where were they getting stuck. And already we see many ways to improve it and make it better. And there's another rendition coming, which is funny. We can talk about that later.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun. But while we're still at the roadmap, I want to get into like the aspect that I had the most trouble. And for context, I built a community back in 23 about the Hero Academy, and I wanted to like you need to be the hero of your own story, those kind of things. Like I still really like the idea, but I was going for low ticket. And even though it did resonate and like people were paying me, it was not nearly enough to actually pay my bills. And I think this was like a huge aha moment that I had to learn through pain and suffering myself. But something that I didn't realize to get the high ticket is to work for people for free, collect case studies, collect the testimonials, because I always thought that I had to get paid for my job. Like I've been working in like a corporate, I've been working in a startup, and I always got paid for the things that I was doing. Collect some case studies on your offer, and then you have the proof that you can actually do that. There are too many people trying to sell something that they haven't achieved themselves. And ideally, not only have you done it for yourself, but you also have helped other people do that. And I think that's what Andrew exactly did. He didn't just achieve financial freedom himself, but he also helped many other people do the same. And if you actually do follow all of the action items, it's unreasonable not to succeed. So what are some things that you would do differently now?
I would say it all depends on your bottleneck or your constraint, because each kind of person is a little different. And with the roadmap, just for any listener who isn't familiar, because we brought it up a lot, starts with orient, which is again directional accuracy, trying to start in the right direction, understanding what is needed for success. Then it gets into networking, which is kind of that first pillar of meeting people, finding problems to solve, building your network, because like Hormozy says, the easiest way to sell at the beginning is to your warm audience. You want to have warm audience of people who trust you. Then it's collecting proof, which is the case study phase. It's collecting proof with the end outcome of discovering a problem, customizing a solution, and then delivering results, and then that turning into proof. And then it's the path to paid, which is basically getting your client, where it's how do you take that proof and then craft an offer? And how do you then close, which is packaging and pitching your offer, the end result of getting clients. Now that is the clearest map to get your clients and get to 5, 10K a month, no problem. Then in terms of scaling past it, that's when things would change. in my opinion, and talking to Andrew and looking at Sam and Hormozy and everything there. And really, it's then becomes around solving bottlenecks. And we talk about this in the roadmap of the 3 pillars of your business as an educational creator, attracting leads, converting, and then delivering results. If you can do those 3 things, you're doing well for yourself. And those are the 3 bottlenecks people run into, simply put. They're either not attracting enough people, and if you're not getting enough calls booked, you're just thinking, oh, I need more people to talk to and sell and help. That tends to be the first problem people run into, attracting. Second problem people run into is converting. Maybe they're getting calls booked or they're finding people to help, but they're just not packaging, they're not pitching their offer well, their sales skills are poor, whatever it may be, their funnel is leaking out like a bucket with holes in it. So they're not converting. And then the third and one of the bigger problems is they're not delivering. So you're making promises you can't keep. You're not delivering results. You're not delivering on your promises. And that is the third constraint. And also within those constraints, there's levels of scalability as you go. So when you start out with attracting, it's easiest to do the warm, the unscalable work, the private conversations, the DMs, the comments, joining the groups and being valuable. But as you go and you get more traffic, that becomes impossible with your time in the day. So then you have to transition into more scalable methods of attraction, which is content, which is maybe retargeting ads, which is all these other things, right? YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, school, whatever. You need to have more scalable methods of attracting people. Then once that bottleneck is solved, you're going to need a more scalable method to convert those people, which one of the best ways is, say, a VSL application funnel. Instead of just talking to each person individually, you need to have something a little more scalable to convert that traffic. And then finally, deliverables, we start with the one-on-one, we start with the services because it is the most valuable. It's the most valuable and most attractive thing to sell. If I offer to solve your problem for you and then I do it for you and I solve your problem, that's very valuable to you versus if I show you how to solve your problem and you have to do it yourself, it's less valuable. You're going to be less willing to pay for it. And that's the final problem to solve, where after enough time, your time gets constrained. You can't work with all the people. If you're attracting and converting well enough, you can't keep delivering one-on-one services for everybody. So then you need a scalable delivery mechanism, which can be a course program. It can be a community with calls, group calls. It can be cohorts, challenges, things like that. And each of those pillars is how you scale. And that's the one thing that is next up, if you will, in the roadmap, where it's how do you actually identify your bottlenecks and then scale? Is attraction your bottleneck? What do you do to solve that problem and fill your calendar with warm leads, with people who want to buy from you and who you can help? And that is probably the thing missing, if you will.
Okay, so rather than improving something from the existing roadmap, we got this roadmap until here. But what are the different pathways from there? I really like this. Also, the aspect of the attract, convert, deliver. I just wish I had known about this so much earlier, because I also started with trying to solve my own problems. Now people will come. It's like, I build it, right? Like, why isn't anyone coming? And then it's like, oh, I guess I need to let people know about this, which is then the attraction part. And I did this for a while. And it's like, okay, I'm doing all of these content things. And it's like, I have the thing that I'm selling, but why isn't anyone buying? Well, it turns out that you actually have to build relationships. You have to show them that they can trust you. And doing all of these 3 things right is very hard. And in bigger businesses, there are multiple people working in each of these departments, right? Because if you think it's the attracting is basically the marketing department, and then converting is the sales department, and then the delivery is customer success or product development. How can people actually do all these 3 things without them feeling insanely overwhelmed? Because there are also people who have gone through the roadmap while having a full-time job. So how is that possible to do all of these 3 things while being time restrained?
Yeah. And the answer is by removing complexity, by making it as simple as possible. Because if we think of it in the big picture of, say, a marketing department, a sales department for a company, that is the ultimate and scalable product. That is the ultimate scalable result of a business. But when we're starting, we don't need that, right? You're not trying to start with the big business. You're not trying to start with Amazon, the worldwide business that ships anything anywhere in a day, right? You're not building that. You're building Amazon, the bookstore, starting out, right? That is the goal. We're trying to just start and build as we go. And with that, by removing complexity, you start with the least scalable and the most attractive business that takes the least amount of time, which is just the one-on-one basics for attract, convert, deliver, which is a warm launch to your existing audience, talking to people in your network. If you want to do health and fitness coaching, chances are you have friends and family or Instagram followers or Facebook friends who might be interested in health and fitness, and you could reach out to and help them and probably get your first client. In fact, every single person I've ever seen who's successful gets their first client from their warm audience. So it's starting with that. And then it's just starting with the basics, having one call instead of worrying about what do I do when I have 100 calls a day? I'm going to need some big team. No, you only need to take one. And then having the simplest delivery mechanism where you just do the work or you work with someone one-on-one in form of coaching, say an hour a week. And then you only add in the complexity when you need it.
Mm.
But when you break it, you want to push it till it breaks and then you solve it.
Yes. Like I think I needed to hear this so much earlier. And like it is in the roadmap. I'm glad that we're covering this because I hope this will push a lot of people to go through the roadmap because we can only cover so many things and doing the things until they break and then fixing it. I like to build things. So sometimes I build things just in case something happens. It's like, oh, but like, what if this super unique scenario is happening and then there's a problem? And then I was like, okay, like, how can I fix this? And I spent like days on this problem that may not even come up later. I still got the skills out of that, so I don't regret it. But I still think I could have moved so much faster. Let's bring this in front of as many eyeballs as possible, ask them what they think of that, and then take it from there, like one step at a time. I'm just curious on how long it takes to go through this whole process. So let's say someone finishes school and there's this desire that like I don't want to work in a regular job. I don't want to go and study. I'm thinking about starting my own business or just kind of like being independent. How long do you think it would take to actually go through the point and getting your first client if they were to follow the roadmap?
It's a great question. And it really depends on you and your experience, your expertise, and how you apply it. But I can tell you how long it took me. And when I actually started, I made my first offer and I actually started, say, following the roadmap, which includes asking, like you remember you mentioned earlier, we have to ask. And for a long time, I realized, oh, I just wasn't asking. So as soon as I started, I went from zero to my first client, which was $150 a week client, to 10 grand a month to $10,000 a month in under 3 months. That's how long it took me. So it took me literally 3 months to follow the process. And I think halfway through, I was around like 5, 7 grand a month. And then I went beyond 10 grand a month within the year time frame. But that's what's possible. Obviously, it takes long for some people. I would say it depends on the one question, the one big question, why should I listen to you? And then applying that to what experience or expertise do you have? What proof do you have of that? And who do you have access to immediately to leverage that? So if you have any of those things where if you have expertise or experience, you're going to go a lot faster because you can already solve problems that are valuable, specifically within a profitable niche, right? You don't want to solve problems that are not valuable,
Mm.
which is another probably topic,
Or two people who cannot afford your services.
which
Because
is the equivalent of unvaluable problem.
exactly. Yeah, I started wanting to help students. I still want to help students, but I know that I'm not getting paid for that. It's similar to the Hermosi strategy. What I feel like he does is he gives away the education for free.
Mhm.
And to the point, it's like, hey, like I want you to make a lot of money to become this $1 million company. So then I can help you take this to 10 million. And I think in like a similar way, I see school as a way to help people get paid first. And then it's like, okay, now you are at that point where when you do start making money, then you may want to look into something more scalable, which is, for example, content. So At what point would you say someone should start creating content? Because I think this is something that I started way too early. I'm still glad that I learned these skills, but if you're in a haste or if you want to achieve something in a certain period of time, I think it can be a distraction. So at what point is generally a good time to start thinking about creating content?
Yeah. Great question. And there's nuance to all of this. For example, there's nuance to the idea that helping students, because depending on the problem, they're willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars for tuition. There's nuance to everything. And then for the idea of content creation, the simplest idea behind it is when you have proof of your offer. When you have proof that you have something valuable, then content is the mechanism to find more of those people. And a lot of the time, people get misconstrued about what the purpose of content is. They don't actually understand it. And the purpose of content as an educational creator is one, to help people, right? It's the most scalable way to deliver an impact. So if your content isn't helping anyone, then it's not fulfilling its purpose. And then two, to grow your business. And that is the core of it all, because if you are helping people, it's going to grow your business. And it's the attraction method. That's what it is. So based on that, you only should do it when you are ready to help people solve a valuable problem. And we define that as having proof of your offer, which means if you've sold something 5 times and you've, say, delivered it, then you are ready to create content because you know you have something people want. And you can answer the question, why should I listen to you? Otherwise, we're going out as complete beginners and we're adding to the noise. We think we're super smart. We think we're creating this super valuable content. It's so good. Why is nobody listening to me? But the truth is, it isn't good, because if it was good, the platform would push it, people would watch it, and you'd grow and you'd grow and you'd grow. If you're not growing, your content isn't good, period. So yeah, just to wrap that up, Lucas, summarize, it's when you have proof of your offer and when you need a more scalable method of attracting people.
As things are needed and not like in case they're needed. And this is also how like the whole roadmap starts by consuming content. Because when you consume, you should also only consume the things that you need right now. If you have the bottleneck, then read a book about this specific bottleneck and not start reading about how do I scale to 10 million if you are still at your like first 1,000. So you can still read the book when you're at that point and it will be even more valuable. And you probably have to revisit that anyways. From here on, I want to move into a little bit more of a fun aspect, because fun is also like one of the core pillars of the synthesizer. And we started with the whole dragon fruit aspect, and it really is like a meme in there. And like another one of those is the sirs, which I think comes from the first aspect where you had the round table, where like people in the community, the leaders are like sirs and ladies, which I'm absolutely a huge fan of. So it looks like you're heavily influenced by certain stories. I'm just curious, what kind of impact had these stories on your life? Why do you enjoy fiction so much, or how does it help you actually?
I think the first thing is it stems from enjoyment. It stems from fun. And when you're having fun, learning happens. And I remember this being a lesson from Sam that I've revisited time and time again because it's so good. And it's, if more programs and stuff were fun, more people would learn, right? If you put a group of people together, a group of entrepreneurs, say a group of dentists, I think was the example Sam gave, and you give them some program and make it boring, they're not going to learn. But if you put them in a room together and you make it fun, they have fun, they're going to also learn and help each other grow their dentist businesses or whatever as a byproduct of the having fun. So it stemmed from that, and it stemmed from a childhood of just a lot of reading. I read a lot as a kid. I used to sneak up and wear a headlamp and hide under my bed sheet so my mom couldn't see the light in my room, and I'd stay up all night reading. I had to know what would happen next. And then it developed where I never really lost it, and I didn't even notice how it might have been affecting my business or my life. Didn't notice, but now that I'm a little further along, I think there's a couple main benefits I look for. One is recovery. One is stopping the mind from being so focused on one thing that you lose sense of the bigger picture. Where if you're just grinding 12, 14 hours a day, which I've done, and it's good to get through periods of growth, eventually you start missing things. It's just a fact. You're less productive. You miss little things that are right in front of your nose, and your performance in your business kind of hurts as a result of it. So I found fiction is a nice way for me to refocus the mind and let my brain stop thinking about this one thing for a few hours at least. So then when I revisit it, my kind of subconscious has munched on the ideas, and then I have better solutions. I've solved the problems that I might have been going over. And there's been times where I'm really struggling with like a core problem in the business, and I'm working on it for like a week, 2 weeks, whatever. And then I just take a few hours and I'm like, all right, I'm wrapping up at 7 o'clock tonight. I'm just going to read a bit of my book. And then the next day, I have the solution to the problem. So that's one.
I love those.
Yeah. And then the second is probably storytelling, understanding little aspects like why do people read? What makes a book a page turner? Why do people put books down? How do the characters develop? Persuasion, psychology, storylines, all of these things that make up a great book make up a great business. And looking at authors like Brandon Sanderson, who's created a business empire off of the backbone of his writing. Things like that, they teach you a lot, and they teach you things that you'd miss otherwise. And little things that then apply to your community and make it better. Like the idea that you mentioned of sirs, everybody calling each other sir in the community. That started from the first offer I sent Andrew. The first thing I sent Andrew, I titled the document "For the Attention of Sir Kirby" or something like that. It was just like a little joke. But now it adds to the community. It creates connection. Instead of just us being here to say make money, we're having fun. We're connecting. We're bonding together over shared experiences. And that is also irreplaceable.
I like your take on the psychology, because sometimes we're so in our own minds that just getting an outside perspective and having these fictional books, it helps you how other people are thinking, because you get put into the shoes of different characters. And
Yeah.
talking about Brandon Sanderson, I never really understood how specific artists were thinking, or like not at that extent, because one of the characters is super into drawing, and how she just sees the world. Wow, like there's a whole universe that I'm not even aware of that is within other people. I even heard someone's like reading fictional books helps you with dating, right?
Yeah.
Because you get like the point of view of the opposite sex. What do they want? Like, what are their desires? I think there's so much we can learn from that. You also mentioned like you had struggling moments where you were working for 6 months and you didn't really see any progress. At some point, we will all get to this point where things seem hard, things seem impossible to do. There is always this valley of despair that I think we all have to go through. And I'm curious like how you got out of yours.
There's multiple valleys of despair. And I
That is
think
also
everybody runs into them. And I think all of us have one, this is my theory at least, we have one defining valley of despair that accumulates into a rock bottom. And if you choose to climb out of it and do it anyways, that is your breakthrough bridge to success. And the people who fail and go back to their regular lives and whatever it is, and they don't start the business, they don't follow the dream, those are the people who get overwhelmed by the valley of despair and turn back. So my valley of despair wasn't my first one wasn't in my entrepreneurial journey. It was in my previous journey where I was a semi-pro soccer player. I was playing college soccer as well. I was going to school. I was working a full-time job at 9 to 5. And I thought that was kind of my life. I was making money. School was taken care of. Scholarship. Life was great. Playing soccer, having fun. And then I got sick where I ended up losing 40 pounds, ended up in the hospital, lost my job, dropped out of school, had to stop playing soccer. Basically everything that was important to me was just ripped away. And that was my like valley of despair, which then which by putting me into the hole, it showed me another route out that I wasn't aware of from where I was at, of say the online game. And that then pushed me to where I am today. So I'm like incredibly grateful for that valley of despair. I would go back into that valley of despair 100 times again to end up where I am today. But when you're in the valley of despair, when you're in the rock bottom, when life sucks, and you're just anxious and stressed and you feel like there's no way out and everyone's depending on you and there's all these rocks piling on top of you, you just don't know what to do, then it's the worst thing ever. But the feeling of pushing through that and then being able to look back and think, wow, I would go through that again to end up where I am today. That's beautiful. And I think one thing that has helped me there is the fiction, because you see characters go into these pits and then you see how they fight out. You see how they deal with thoughts in their mind. One example from Brandon Sanderson, Kaladin, right?
Yes.
How many pits did he fall into in the Stormlight archive, for people who might recognize the story? And then how did he fight out and keep building himself up, keep showing up, keep fighting, even when it was hopeless? It's one of the things that inspires me, because I know even if it sucks and I don't see a way out, I have faith that there is a way out and it'll be worth it in the end.
Sometimes we need to be in this extremely shitty place to realize that there is more to life than the thing that we've been doing before, right? Like when you mentioned like you had like your job and you were playing soccer, and without that disease happening, you may have just like gone through your life and didn't even realize there was more to that. These are the moments where we wake up to this great online game, where we get to choose these things. Until I had my kind of valley of despair and I started to like really questioning, is this what I really want to do? Before that just doesn't happen. And I think so many people go through their life without this crisis or this extreme situation happening. Sometimes we need to be thrown off to realize there are many more paths out there, and that's where we start actually choosing where we want to go.
One thing that comes to mind is internalizing the belief that suffering is God's gift to you,
Mm,
and suffering is the gift. And I think that alone will take people really far. Like, we could talk about all these actionable tips, solve problems, solve valuable problems, don't create content first, find problems to solve, talk to people, all these things. But at the end of the day, you will figure that out. You will apply that. You just need to realize that suffering and through that sacrifice to get through the suffering is a gift. Don't let it overwhelm you. Everybody has gone through those moments. I've worked with a ton of educational creators, and not one person had not had those moments. Not one person. Every single person following that path that you want to follow. Maybe you have that like restlessness in your heart. You're not fulfilling your potential. Everyone who's done that, who's committed, who's quit the job, who's gone all in, anything, people have gone through it before you, which means the path is proven. It's not new. And oftentimes we trick ourselves that the path is new. We're the only ones walking it. We're alone. This sucks. It's so hard. And we want to give up. But it's a gift. Every suffering you've gone through, other people have also suffered through. You are not alone. Have some backbone, have some strength. Keep showing up anyways. Keep fighting, and it'll be worth it. I truly
yeah.
believe any person who does not back down in the face of hard things and suffering and problems in front of their goals, 'cause every person runs into the problems in front of their goals. They all run into bottlenecks and go through valleys. Every person. But the one who just keeps going, they will get somewhere.
Mm.
You will not stay in the hard part.
But I think we should go after the hard part, like pursue the things that are hard, because
Yeah.
if things were easy, if all of the things were like always happening, imagine a video game where you beat the boss for the first try every time. That's a boring game.
Yeah.
We need this challenge for us to grow. We are not good enough yet, but we know what to do. These experience, this challenge, this will prepare me to do the things that I am meant to do later on. Like this, to end things with, like, where do you want to go? Like, what's the big aspiration? What do you want your legacy to be?
I want to continue to solve problems and share the solution with people behind me. But truly, I've visited this idea many times, and I truly believe that I am just building the ability to make other people's dreams a reality.
If we all do this, then we will live in a very beautiful world where everyone is just like helping the people behind them. If we all do that, then we can't lose.
Beautiful place to end.
Aiden, appreciate you coming on. People will find you in the synthesizer. I'm excited to jump back into the community, see how we can be helpful.
Sir Luke the Wizard. Thank you. See you guys in the community.